The Colorado Plateau, once thought unshakable, is moving. Satellites show the land from the Grand Canyon to Moab, slowly lifting and twisting beneath the desert.
While reporting on the climate crisis and tonight news on the Colorado River, the warning from federal authorities just today that we're at a tipping point, in their words.
It's hard to believe, but one of the most stable regions in North America may be shifting beneath our feet. For millions of years, the Colorado Plateau, spanning Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, stood as a geological fortress, immune to the violent folding of the Rockies or the grinding faults of California. But now, new data is rewriting that history. From the Grand Canyon's crimson depths to the high mesas of Moab, satellites are detecting a strange, rhythmic uplift. The crust itself rising, breathing, and twisting like something alive beneath the desert. Could the heart of the American West be waking up? What lies beneath this vast landscape of sandstone and silence may be more than rock and time. Beneath the Colorado River Basin, instruments are picking up heat anomalies, magnetic pulses, and deep, seismic whispers. Signals that hint at a molten corridor pushing toward the surface. The Colorado River, the Rockies, and the desert floor may all be responding to the same buried force. And so the question becomes, if the land that built the West is starting to move again, what is it trying to tell us? Chapter 1. The Fractured Plateau. What if the ground beneath the Rocky Mountains wasn't rising from erosion, but from something awakening underneath? As autumn crept across the Colorado Plateau, new GPS data revealed an unsettling trend. Measurable uplift spreading eastward from the Grand Canyon. The crust was rising, millimeters each week, like a breath held too long. Satellite INSAR scans showed deformation patterns rippling outward, bending highways, tilting drainage systems, even shifting sections of the Colorado River itself. Scientists from the Geological Survey found that the uplift zones coincided perfectly with dormant fault lines, faults that hadn't moved for nearly 40 million years. Now they were stirring. Pressure readings from deep boreholes suggested molten material was pushing upward through cracks that once acted as seals. The entire upper basin was flexing under forces no one had seen in recorded history. Bridges creaked. Reservoir walls groaned. Tourists along the canyon rim described a constant hum beneath their feet, as if the land were vibrating with anticipation. Geophysicists now believe the subterranean corridor isn't confined. It's branching. Fingers of magma are reaching beneath the Rockies, feeding the same electromagnetic surges that drive the Colorado's mysterious pulses. The planet's interior and surface are sinking, like two halves of a single system. If the Colorado Plateau, the ancient foundation of the American West, is beginning to breathe, how long before the mountains themselves wake up? Chapter 2. Dust and Fire. What if the wind itself had become part of the disaster? In October 2025, a chain of dry thunderstorms swept across the Four Corners, sending walls of dust spiraling into the basin. Within days, snowpack on the Rockies turned grey, absorbing sunlight instead of reflecting it. Drones from the University of Utah confirmed what hydrologists feared. Dust deposition was accelerating snowmelt at record speed. The mountain's water supply, already fragile, began melting away a month early. But this wasn't ordinary dust. Airborne sensors detected metallic nanoparticles, iron, vanadium, tungsten, identical to those found in the river's newly formed crystalline deposits. The storm had carried particles from the canyon itself, blown straight into the clouds. As it fell back over the Rockies, the dust seeded storms laced with trace metals, creating flashes of dry lightning that struck desert soil with magnetic precision. The cycle was feeding itself. Fire birthing dust, dust melting snow, snow fueling the river, and the river fueling the magma corridor below. Every part of the system was now in conversation. The Earth wasn't just changing, it was orchestrating. If the sky, the snow, and the stone are now moving to the same rhythm, what's left to stand still? Chapter 3. The Energy Gamble. What if humanity decided to harness the very force that might destroy it? Within weeks of confirming the underground heat corridor, private energy firms flooded the region with proposals. They called it geothermal opportunity, a clean power revolution buried beneath the desert. Investors poured millions into preliminary drilling, claiming the Colorado Basin could become America's largest natural energy grid, but not everyone agreed. Data from USGS showed that every attempt to tap into the molten corridor increased seismic stress. The crust trembled with each drill pulse, amplifying the electromagnetic feedback loop. When one experimental borehole near Moab reached 1,300 meters, it triggered a 3.9 magnitude quake, the largest in decades. Yet the deeper the risk, the greater the greed. Companies framed it as controlled ignition, a chance to stabilize the system by relieving internal pressure. In reality, they were poking a sleeping giant with a steel spear. Rumors spread of unauthorized drilling at night, glowing dust clouds rising over restricted zones, and a new hum in the desert that vibrated through metal and bone. The Colorado River, once a resource of water, had become a battleground of energy. If we can't resist exploiting a living planet even as it wakes beneath us, will Earth's next defense be to shake us off entirely? Chapter 4. Ancient Warnings. What if the oldest stories on this land weren't myths, but memories? As scientists scrambled for answers, they turned to voices that had warned of such awakenings long before satellites or seismic maps existed. Elders from the Navajo, Hopi, and Hualapai nations spoke of rivers that disappeared into the earth, of mountains that hummed before they broke, and of water that burned without flame. To them, the signs weren't new, they were repetition. Tribal historians shared oral accounts of the sleeping fire, a legend describing a time when the Colorado ran red, the ground split, and the river vanished for 3 days before returning warmer and alive. Those words, once poetic, now mirrored satellite data showing thermal surges and river flow drops. For centuries, science dismissed such tales as metaphor. Now, they read like eyewitness reports from an ancient geological cycle repeating itself. Researchers began overlaying indigenous maps atop modern fault line data. To their astonishment, the alignment was near perfect. Every sacred site tied to the breathing earth corresponded to a heat anomaly or seismic cluster. The past wasn't warning us, it was remembering. If our ancestors already told us what happens when the river awakens, why did we stop listening before it was too late? Chapter 5. The race to understand it all. What if everything we thought we controlled, our dams, our cities, our science, was only borrowed time from a restless planet? As 2025 drew to a close, the Colorado River Basin became the epicenter of the world's greatest scientific mystery. International teams arrived with supercomputers, satellite networks, and deep drilling rigs. Governments convened emergency sessions. The Department of the Interior quietly reclassified the basin as a geological risk zone. But the river didn't wait for our answers. Pressure under Lake Mead rose sharply. Fissures multiplied across the Mojave. Electromagnetic surges disrupted aircraft navigation for miles. Even the night sky above the canyon began to glow faintly red. A sign, scientists said, of charged particles escaping the crust. The Colorado River, once the most measured and managed waterway on Earth, was rewriting the rules in real time. Some scientists now argue the river has entered a new geobiological phase, a planetary feedback loop combining magma, microbes, atmosphere, and time. To them, it's not a catastrophe, but an evolution. To others, it's the beginning of an extinction. If a river can learn to breathe, burn, and evolve, then maybe the question isn't what we've discovered beneath the Colorado, but whether the Earth has just decided to wake up. Chapter 6. The Fault Beneath the Dam. What if the Hoover Dam, America's greatest symbol of control, was built directly over a sleeping fault line? In November 2025, magnetotelluric readings revealed a dense linear anomaly running parallel to the river, directly beneath the dam's foundation. Engineers dismissed it as residual rebar interference, until microseismic sensors detected a low-frequency oscillation echoing up through the concrete itself. The structure was resonating, vibrating in harmony with the underground magma corridor. Infrared footage taken at night showed heat signatures radiating through the dam's spillway gates, each flare synchronized with tremors measured hundreds of feet below. Some scientists theorized that the molten corridor was generating electromagnetic induction strong enough to heat the steel. Officials silenced the data release, fearing public panic, but insiders leaked footage of a faint orange halo glowing along the dam's face just before midnight. If the line that tamed the river begins to move with it, can civilization survive the heartbeat of its own creation? The glass fields of Glen Canyon. What if the desert was quietly turning to glass? Field researchers exploring the upper basin found patches of fused silica spreading across dried tributaries, smooth, reflective surfaces stretching for meters, shimmering under the sun like liquid mirrors. Tests confirmed the composition. Melted quartz mixed with iron oxides, formed at temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius. No wildfires, no lightning strikes, just spontaneous fusion at ground level. The phenomenon followed magnetic ridges in the bedrock, matching the subterranean heat flow. Satellite imagery revealed dozens of these glass veins, radiating outward like roots of an unseen tree. Geologists warn that if the process continues, reflective surfaces could amplify sunlight, creating localized heat traps capable of altering regional climate patterns. The canyon isn't eroding anymore. It's evolving into a mineral organism. If stone itself is beginning to melt and mirror the sky, what kind of world will we be standing on when the reflection looks back? Chapter 7. The River That Remembered. What if a river could recall every path it ever carved? Late-season radar mapping uncovered ancient subterranean channels, fossilized riverbeds that once fed the ancestral Colorado. Yet in 2025, these dry tunnels began refilling, not with water, but with superheated brine. Thermal scans showed currents moving upstream through the old passages, reversing flow as if history itself were rewinding. Sensors placed in abandoned boreholes registered pulses of salinity and heat traveling northward, parallel to the modern river. The underground flow appeared to seek its former roots, reacting to magnetic cues from the reawakened corridor. To hydrologists, it looked less like chance and more like memory, the river reclaiming its forgotten map. If water can remember the shape of its past, what else might the earth be preparing to resurrect? The lights beneath the canyon. What if the Grand Canyon itself was glowing from below? In December 2025, tourists camping near Havasu Falls captured viral footage of blue light emanating from cracks in the canyon walls after sunset. At first blamed on bioluminescent algae, the glow was later traced to ionized gases seeping from new fissures. Spectrometers identified helium, argon, and trace xenon reacting with airborne dust to create a natural plasma, an underground aurora. At night, the canyon pulsed with light, flickering in harmony with seismic readings. Locals began calling it the breathing fire. Pilots reported interference as aircraft passed over the illuminated zones. Chapter 8. The river's new voice. What if the Colorado River has started to speak? Hydrophones deployed near the Glen Canyon outflow captured infrasonic frequencies too low for human hearing, but structured like language. Repeating intervals, harmonic modulation, patterns reminiscent of coded transmission. When audio engineers accelerated the recording 500-fold, they heard rhythmic waves resembling breathing, then a resonant chord that built, peaked, and faded every 40 minutes, perfectly aligned with the electromagnetic pulses first detected months earlier. No geological model explains it. Some call it acoustic resonance from underground magma. Others insist it's the sound of shifting crust plates. But a growing faction of researchers believes it's something unprecedented. The combined vibration of magma, microbes, minerals, and water. A planetary signal forming from chaos. The river doesn't just flow anymore, it hums. If the Earth has finally found its voice, are we listening to a warning or the first words of a world learning to speak? Yet even as calm returns, new crystals continue to form along the riverbanks, blue-white structures that glow faintly in moonlight and pulse once every 40 minutes, echoing the heartbeat that started it all. If the Colorado River has evolved into something beyond water, beyond life, beyond our control, then what if this isn't the end of an era, but the beginning of the planet's next chapter? The shattered reservoirs. What if the lakes that sustained the West were never meant to hold still water? In early 2026, cracks spidered across the beds of Lake Powell and Lake Mead, releasing jets of mineral-rich steam that glittered in the morning light. Engineers raced to seal them, but pressure sensors showed the fractures weren't leaks, they were vents. Beneath the concrete, magma-heated groundwater surged upward, turning the reservoirs into breathing chambers. The dams moaned under stress, vibrating with subsonic resonance that matched the Earth's own hidden pulse. If our greatest walls of control are now part of the planet's respiration, what happens when they exhale for the last time? Chapter 9. The Iron Rain. What if storms could bleed metal? Satellite spectrometers detected microscopic flakes of oxidized iron falling across northern Arizona. Ash born not of fire, but of mineral evaporation. When collected on lab slides, each particle shimmered with magnetic polarity, aligning toward the canyon's molten core like compass needles trapped in dust. Farmers awoke to crimson-tinted soil. Vehicles corroded overnight. Atmospheric chemists warned that the basin's air had become electrically alive. A sky turned conductor between earth and storm. If the heavens above the Colorado now carry the river's breath, how long before the rain itself begins to burn? Centimeters at first, then faster. Rockfalls cascaded down remote valleys as slopes flexed like muscle. Satellite imagery revealed slow-motion deformation rippling through mountain roots, a continental shrug echoing the corridor's expansion. Geologists predicted that within decades the entire western front might pivot, redirecting rivers, rewriting maps, reshaping borders. If even the mountains are beginning to move, can any boundary we've drawn on this continent still mean anything at all? Geologists saw contamination that could poison aquifers for centuries. Nights near the wells glowed faintly red, as if the desert itself was smelting. If humanity keeps reaching for the fire beneath, will we light the world or melt it? Chapter 10. The Awakening of Stone. What if rocks could grow again? Along fault walls exposed by the uplift, newly formed crystals pushed outward, splitting sandstone slabs apart. Time-lapse cameras captured veins expanding visibly within hours, fed by the same biothermal reaction now coursing through the basin. The canyon was rebuilding itself in real time, old rock dissolving, new rock forming. The planet had entered an age of geological acceleration. If creation and destruction are now happening in the same heartbeat, are we witnessing the Earth dying or being born again? The river's pulse in space. What if the Earth's heartbeat could be heard from orbit? When the European Space Agency reanalyzed magnetic field data from satellites passing over the southwest, they discovered a rhythmic fluctuation every 40 minutes, the same period recorded at the river's seismometers. The signal was strong enough to ripple through the ionosphere, faintly distorting radio frequencies across the hemisphere. The breath of Earth. What if everything we've witnessed, the pulses, the fire, the storms, the voice, wasn't the Colorado River changing, but the planet remembering how to live? Long after the tremors quieted and the satellites dimmed, the desert still hummed faintly beneath the silence. The river flowed again, calm and clear, yet under its glassy surface, threads of blue light shimmered in rhythm with something deep below. The microbes endured, the molten veins stretched onward, and the ground still breathed heat, like a sleeping creature dreaming of movement. Scientists called it stabilization, but it felt more like metamorphosis, the Earth shifting into its next form. Across the basin, the air carried a low resonance, almost inaudible, but always there. A reminder that this was never just about geology or drought or data. It was about life itself, rising from stone. Humanity may have built dams, charts, and empires, but the pulse beneath it all was never ours to command. The Colorado River had awakened to remind the world that nature's silence is never death, it's preparation. If this river was the first to stir, how many others lie beneath us, waiting to breathe? And when the next one wakes, will we be ready to listen? If this story shook your view of the world beneath our feet, don't stop here. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the next hidden force shaping our planet. Because the Earth isn't done speaking, and neither are we.